Hello my dear friends. First of all, I want to thank all the viewers and subscribers of my channel. I have read some of your comments and I really appreciate it. I actually do have lots of ideas to share and I will add your request on my list. So just stay tuned guys. In today's tutorial, let's talk about Odoo Javascript Services. But before we create a new service from scratch, I thought it will be good to try and implement first all the commonly used services already there in Odoo. As you can see, we have a list of buttons and each of these are different kind of services that you can use on your project. Say for example, we have the notification service, which allow us to add notifications like warning, information, success, or danger. We have the dialog service to reconfirm the user before executing the action. We have effect service to show notification with animation. We have cookie service to save data in the browser without saving it into the database. One good example, if you want a dark theme mode, instead of saving it into a database, you can use the browser cookie storage to store the data, and even if I go into other screen and go back, you will see that it's still in dark mode. We have HTTP services like get method to retrieve the data from other external APIs, post method in saving data into other external APIs, RPC service which is connected directly into our HTTP route in the controller, ORM service which allow us to easily retrieve record from the database, action service which allow us to define window action or a URL action, a router service to let you access or modify the URL link. So what I have added is the BG success. If I will click this again, it will become the default BG primary. User service to get the information of the currently logged in user. The same with company service, it will let you retrieve the company details. And lastly, the title service, which allow us to modify the title of the page. All of this will be saved in GitHub so that you can easily get a copy of the codes. With that being said, let's dive into it and show you how it works. So going back to our project, let me just quickly create a new menu item with a client action. So we have already added the new menu, Odoo Services. Now let's create the client action. Under Components, let's create a new folder, Services. And let's create a new file, Odoo Services.js. Now let's upgrade our module and make sure you are in debug mode. Just activate it if you have not done that. And then let's upgrade our module. And let's click our new menu. As you can see, it's working fine. The next thing we need to do is to add the default layout from Odoo so that we will have automatically the title here. And if you want to add buttons, we can also do it. let's try. So as you can see, we already have the title here, and if you want to add some text or buttons, we can do that. But now we will focus on the content. So now let's start adding services. First in our list will be the notification service. In our XML file, let's add a new div. Let's add a new button, class btn primary. Let's name it notification service. We will add an on-click event, and let's name it show notification. Let's copy and paste it into our JavaScript file. So this will be a new method. For now, let's just add a console log. Let's activate the inspector tool and just refresh. Okay, now we have the button, and if I will click, I will have console log notification service. So we have two ways to add services. If we intend to use it in setup, so we can import the use service from web or utils hooks, and from the setup we can add, let's say, this the notification is equal to use service notification. So let's console log this notification. The other one is directly from the function. Let's add constant notif is equal to this.env services notification. So let's console log the same thing, and let's see. So if I will refresh and if I will click, as you can see, we have the same function here. So we have two options now. If we want to use it in the setup method, then we will use the use service hooks. Otherwise, let's use this way. In my case, I will use the second option because I will just use it once. So if you want to use it multiple times in several functions, then you may use this first option. Let me just rename it. So we can now add a notification by adding add. That's the name of the method. And you can add your content here. This is a sample notification. And then second parameter will be an object, and we can pass a title. Let's say Odoo Notification Service. And then we can add a type. There are several types of notification. We have info. Let me just add it here and comment. We have info, warning, danger, and success. Okay, now let's try. Let's refresh. Notification service, as you can see, it's already working. I can click several times and it will disappear, I think, after 5 seconds. Now we have an option to make it sticky. It's equal to true. Then you need to manually click the close button in order for this notification to disappear. Let's try that. As you can see, this notification will not hide unless you click the close button. We have also an option here to add a class name we want. Let's say I want to have a padding 4, and let's try. As you can see, the padding increases. So if you want to edit it, how it looks, then you can add a custom class name maybe, and then you can target specific elements inside this. Next is we can add buttons. And it is an array, and we can add a new object. The first will be the name. Name it notification action. And then an on-click event. You can define the method you want here. In this case, I just want to console log. This is notification action. And lastly, if you want this button to be primary, means the class will be btn primary. Now let's try. And as you can see, I have a new button here, and if I will click, I have the console log that I set. And let's say I want the second button, show me again, and I'll just call the same thing. This is the notification. Primary is equal to false. Now let's try. Now I have two buttons. If I will click show me again, then I'll just call this the same function. Okay, so that's it guys for notification service. We can move into the next one, which is dialog service. So in our XML file, let's duplicate this and let's add a margin start, make it dialog service. Let's rename this show dialog. Let's create a new method, show dialog. Let's do the same thing. Let's replace the dialog. Let's console lang dialog. Let's see if it's working fine. The new buttons is here. If I will click, I will see the dialog service function and we have an add method. As you can see on the parameters, we need to add dialog class. In that case, we need to import confirmation dialog from web core confirmation dialog. Now let's add a new dialog. Let's paste the confirmation dialog component and let's add the second parameter. First will be the title. Let's name it dialog service. And then the body, which will be the message that we will show. And of course, we will have two buttons if you confirm and if you cancel. So if they confirm, then do some action. I'll just add console log. And if they cancel, let's add an arrow function, console log, dialog, cancel. Now let's try it. Dialog service is working fine. As you can see, we have the title and the message, and then OK, cancel. So if OK, dialog confirm. If cancel, then dialog cancel. And lastly, we have an option here also on close. So this function, regardless what they click, even if confirm or cancel, we can add a function. Again, console log, dialog, service, closed. Let's try it. Dialog service, cancel. As you can see, I canceled, and also the unclose event triggered. That's it guys for dialog service. Let's proceed to the next one. Let's rename it to show effect. Let's copy and let's create a new method. Effect and effect. Let's console log effect service. Okay, it's working fine. So the same thing, we have an add method and it accepts an object. The first one will be the type, and then we have this rainbow men, and the next one will be the message. This is an awesome Odoo effect service. Now let's try it. And there you go. We have a nice effect here. We can actually create a new effect service, but that will be covered in the next topic. For now, let's focus on how to use the existing services in Odoo. So the next one will be cookie service. Let's duplicate and let's replace it to cookie service. And let's name it set cookie service. Let's create a new method. So in this cookie service, we are going to add a new cookie, either if they will use a dark mode or no. So under setup, we need to immediately know if there are existing cookie and if the dark mode is equal to true or false. So let's use the use service. This.cookie service is equal to use service cookie. Now let's console log this.cookie service. Let's try. Let's see what's inside this object. So we have the current, which retrieves all the existing cookies. So if we go inside application, we see all the existing cookies. And then we have two methods, delete cookie and set cookie. So what we want to do is we will set a new cookie, which is dark mode. If it's set to true, then we can just simply make our content with the background dark. So under setup, we need to check if there's an existing. Remember, we can access the existing cookies using the current object. If dark theme is equal to undefined, means there's no existing dark theme in our cookies, then we need to set a new cookie by calling set cookie dark, and the value will be false. Now let's try. As you can see, we have already the dark mode here. And under the XML file, let's wrap the layout with a div. And then let's add the attribute with function, and it will be class. First, I want to have view height 100, and let's add a ternary function here. But before we do that, we need to import use state, and this dot state is equal to use state, and then the dark theme will be coming from the cookie, because eventually this dark theme will change, and that's why we need to import use state, so that any change into this dark theme, our view will re-render. So now that we have a use state here, we can now add if the state that dark theme is equal to true, then we add a new class bgdark. Otherwise, no class will be added. So now, in order for this dark theme to change, then we need to add some code in this method. So if dark mode is set to false, then we need to set the cookie dark mode is equal to true, and vice versa. After that, we need to update the state. Dark mode is equal to the one saved in the cookie. Is it dark mode or dark theme? Let's make it dark theme then. And also we need to make this false. Now let's try. If I will click, the background will become dark. I will go to other menu and refresh and go back. You will see that still in the dark mode. So if you want to delete some cookie, let's add some cookies here. Test. So instead of set cookie, let's delete cookie, and it will be test. Now let's try. So I will click cookie service and refresh. You will see that the test cookie has been deleted. That's it, guys, for cookie service. Now let's proceed to the next one. So the next service that we will be adding is the HTTP service. We have two methods, the get request and the post request. Let's do first the get HTTP service. Let's rename it as get HTTP service. Let's copy and create a new method. Let's replace this to HTTP, and let's console that. Let's check what's inside this HTTP method. So we have get and post method. For the external API, let's go over dummyjson.com. And since we are only interested with the get method, let's try this link. Copy, and let's store it in a data. And since you will receive a response here, we need to add a sync in our method and await http.get and the link. Now let's console log this data, and let's see what we will get. Let's refresh, and if I will click get HTTP service, As you can see on the console log, I have the list of products, which means our get method is working fine. Now we want to display it in a table. So I need to add it in our state. And let's say get HTTP data, an empty array as our initial state. And then when I click this button, we need to update this state, get HTTP data equal to data. So now in our XML file, let's create a new table. But first we need to wrap it in a div with a class of row and another div with a class of call. And under tr, we need to add t for each, state that get HTTP data, t as data, and our key will be the data.id. As you can see, we have ID here, and then what we want to display is the brand and the description. So we need to add td and span the escape data.brand and description. And one more thing, we will only display this table if there's record under state get HTTP data. So here we need to add products because that's the list of the products. Now let's refresh. So if I will click this button, as you can see, all the records are coming in. So now let's go to post HTTP service. Let's duplicate this, and instead of get, let's add post. And here we need to add a sync post HTTP service. Let's copy the same thing. And instead of get, let's replace it with post. And we need to replace also this state. And let's add new state post HTTP data. Let's check some post method. Okay, this one method is post. Let's copy. And let's replace this link. And the body, we need to add a title. Let's copy and paste it here. Let's see the output. So it will return ID and the title. Let's remove products. Let's try it. So if I will click post HTTP service, as you can see, we received the response, which is the ID and the title, which I added. So in our XML file, let's add those data. And instead of get, let's rename it with post HTTP data. And from here, we don't need actually this t for each because we are only receiving a single object. This will be the ID and the title. Now let's try. It's working fine. So that's it for get and post HTTP service. Now let's move on to the next service. And the next service will be RPC. And the method name will be get RPC Service. Let's create a new function. And instead of HTTP, let's add RPC. And this RPC service is directly connected to our HTTP route under our controllers. In that case, we need to create a new directory and name it controllers. Create an init file and then REST partner. Let's import HTTP and let's create a new class, REST partner, HTTP controller. Then let's define the route. It will be all/RPC service. Type will be JSON. And this can be only accessed by user. Let's define the function, get customers, and we will return. I'll be using the search read since I need to get only specific fields, which is the name and the email. We need to add it in the init file. And we need to import the controllers from the main init file. Now we need to restart because we added some Python files. And then let's copy the route that we just created and paste it here. But we need an initial state. Let's say RPC data, const data is equal to 08. And then the RPC service, the HTTP route we just created. And let's add the console log. So if I will click this, I should receive the list of partner's name and the email address. So as you can see, we already receiving the data, the name, and the email, as well as the ID. Now let's update the state. This state that RPC data is equal to data. And in our XML file, let's copy the first table. And instead of get HTTP data, let's add RPC data. And we have the ID, the name, and then the email. Let's try it. So it's working fine. Now let's try to add a limit. And we need to add this as a parameter. And then the JavaScript, we need to pass an object, and the limit will be 15, for example. And don't forget to restart because we edited some Python file. So now I'm only receiving 15 records. Let's move on to the next one, which is ORM Service. And instead of RPC, let's rename it to Get ORM Service. Let's close these files. And let's define the new function. Instead of RPC, it will be ORM. And let's console log ORM Service. If I will click ORM Service, you will see what are the methods that we can use. So ORM is connected to the database, which make it easier to retrieve record, wherein the functions is the same like in Python code. Say for example, we just created the search read. We can just copy the same thing. And then ORM, let's paste it. Since JavaScript is using camel case, so we need to remove this. And then let's add the model name, which is REST partner. The domain will be the same, and this will be the fields that I want to retrieve. And for now, we don't need the limit. Let's console log the data. And don't forget to add a wait here. Then let's try it. As you can see, we are receiving the same thing like we did in the Python code. So now let's add an initial state ORM data as an empty array. Now you can update it here. ORM this that state that ORM data is equal to data. And we can do the same thing. Let's copy and paste t if ORM data. And then let's try it. Now the data has been displayed in a table. Actually, I already did several ORM method on my previous tutorials. Maybe you have already seen that. I will leave the link on the description for you to check. So let's move on to the next service, which is Action Service. So let's rename this as Action Service. Let's paste the method, and then instead of ORM, let's rename it as action. And under action, we have a method doAction, which accepts an object which is similar to the one we are doing in Python code. So first will be the type. In this case, I want to add ir.actions.actWindow. Name will be Action Service. And the REST model will be the name of our model, REST partner. We can also add a domain and a context, and then the views. So under views, we need to add a list. The first item will be false, and then list. So this item will be used if you define a specific view, but if you want to get the default view, then just make it false. Let's duplicate and add form, and we can add the view mode. It will be list and form. And you can also add a target. If you want to view it like a wizard, then add new, or else make it current. Instead of IT, it should be IR. Now let's try it. As you can see, I am already in the REST partner and I have a list view and a form view. Now let's try to add some domain. Let's say we want to filter only REST partner with a name like ready. Instead of parentheses, we will add square brackets. The name I like ready. Let's try to make it display name. Now I get several records with name having ready. And now we want to add some context. So let's open and see the search view. And let's get this type company. Let's remove this domain that we added. And instead we need to add the new context. Search default type company is equal to 1. And I also want to add the Kanban view. Let's go back and refresh, and let's see if it's working fine. As you can see, I have the default company in my context. Now let's move on to the next one, which is router service. Let's rename it to get router service. Let's copy and let's create a new method. Instead of action, rename it to router. And let's console log router service. Let's see what's inside the router service. So we have several methods and an object current, which consists of the hash, path name, and search. So the hash, as you can see here, we have this hash symbol, and we have action, which is 321, CID is 1, and menu ID is 221. We don't have a search, and the path name is web. So what we want to do here is to edit the link, and we will add search param bg success. If it's equal to 1, then we need to change the class of this button as bg success, otherwise bg primary. As you can see here, we don't have a search parameter. In that case, let's retrieve the search param is equal to router.current, and now we can add a new parameter bg success, and the value is if the search that bg success is equal to 1, then make it 0, otherwise make it 1. Now let's try to console log router.current. So at this point, the search param bg success has already been added, so we should see that the router has been changed. So as you can see, the search param is already added, but the issue is we want to refresh the page. In that case, we need to import two components, browser and route to URL. From router service, and the browser, and then browser.location.href will become the browser.location.origin plus route to URL, then the router.current. The good thing here is this code will only run if there's a change in the current URL link. Now let's try it. As you can see, we have bg success 1, and then let's click again. Now it became bg success is equal to 0. So now in the XML file, we need to have the attribute with function, and let's remove this. We forget to add an initial state. Let's add bg success, and for that we need to define again the router, this.env.services.router. Then under BG success, we need to access the current object, search parameter, and BG success. And now going back to our XML file, we can now access the state BG success. If it's equal to 1, then we will add btn success. Otherwise, btn primary. Now let's try. If I will click again, it will refresh, and as you can see, BG success is equal to 1. Now the button became btn success. And if I will click again, it will go back to btn primary. Now let's move to the next service, which is user service. Let's copy and let's create a new function. Let's copy and replace with user. Let's console.log user. Let's refresh and click user service. As you can see, we have a list of objects regarding current user. So using this data, you can pass it as a domain or a validation that you can use in your functions. So let's display it in the content. And the next will be the company service, which is similar. Let's duplicate company, get company service. And instead of user, let's replace it with company. And also we need to update the state. And in our XML file, let's duplicate and change it to company data. Now let's try. Okay, it's working fine. You might use this, for example, you have the available companies and allowed company IDs. In that case, you can pass this ID as a domain into your model, which is good if you are working with multi-company setup. Then lastly, we need to create the title service. And the service, we don't need to have a function because we can only use this title service inside our setup method. Let's initialize title service is equal to useService title, and let's console log title service. Let's see what are inside this service. So we have a get parts function and then current. So the current title, as you can see, it's Odoo Services. So let's try to console log get parts function. Let's refresh. So inside this function, we have an object, and the first one is ZOpenERP, which is Odoo. So if you want to change this, let's call the method setParts, and we want to change ZOpenERP into something, let's say AJScript. Now let's try. As you can see, the title has been changed already with AJScript. We can also add other data, let's say Odoo and then media or any tutorials. Now let's refresh. As you can see, the title has been modified. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you on my next tutorial.